Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to speak in strong support of the Fair Trading Fuelcheck Amendment Bill 2026. I commend the Minister for Better Regulation and Fair Trading for bringing this necessary and timely bill before the House, and I acknowledge him present here in the chamber today to hear the debate. This bill comes before the House at a time when fuel shortages are up and persistently high prices are hitting our households hard and exposing just how vulnerable families are to price shocks at the Bowser. Across New South Wales, people are being asked to absorb yet another cost increase in budgets already stretched to breaking point. In my electorate of Penrith, long before the recent fuel crisis, motorists were already fed up with erratic and excessive price swings. Variations of 60 cents per litre were not uncommon. That is not a minor fluctuation, it is a serious cost burden on working people. It is simply unacceptable that such dramatic price differences can occur from one suburb to the next, and even between service stations that are operating under the same company banner. These issues were well and truly evident before this government's election in 2023, and I find it incredulous that this government is getting the blame for not having addressed it earlier when this app has been in existence since 2016. Where were the other lot for that 7 years? Speaker, fuel is not a discretionary purchase. It is an essential input into daily life and the cornerstone of economic activity. When price surges or supply are disrupted, the damage is immediate and far-reaching. Transport costs rise, freight becomes more expensive, food supply chains come under pressure, and small businesses are forced to pass on higher costs to customers. In the end, it is us ordinary consumers who pay the price. Farmers, fishers and transport operators are among those that bear the brunt of this pressure. I know in regional and rural New South Wales, fuel is not an optional extra, and there's no easy substitute. Agricultural producers depend on it to run machinery, move livestock and get produce to market. Freight operators depend on it to keep essential goods moving. Food distributors depend on it to maintain transport and refrigeration. When fuel costs climb, the pressure does not stay confined to one sector. It ripples across the entire economy and lands squarely on our communities. Those rising costs are now being felt where families feel them most, at the supermarket checkout, in weekly household budgets and local economies across the state. At a time when people are already battling rising rents, mortgage repayments, grocery prices and energy bills, every extra increase in fuel costs is just another blow. For many households, there's no room left to absorb it. Fuel price volatility is also undermining travel and tourism across the country. Airlines, cruise operators and domestic tourism providers are passing rising operating costs directly to consumers through surcharges and higher fares. In regional New South Wales, where tourism sustains local jobs and local businesses, that matters. And when travel becomes more expensive and less predictable, families put off holidays, cancel trips and think twice about visiting regional communities. That means less spending, less confidence and less economic activity where it is needed most. We are also seeing the consequences in everyday transport. Rideshare operators like Uber and Didi have imposed fuel surcharges, reportedly around 5 cents a kilometre, adding yet another cost to people who rely on those services to get to work, attend medical appointments or meet caring responsibilities. For shift workers, older residents and people living in areas with limited public transport, these services are not a luxury. They are a necessity. And when those costs rise, people have no choice but to pay more or go without. In this environment, transparency in fuel pricing is not a nice to have, it is an absolute essential. That is why New South Wales Fuelcheck is so important. Fuelcheck gives motorists real-time price information, allowing them to compare prices, make informed decisions and avoid being caught out by unfair or inaccurate pricing. It is a practical cost of living measure that puts power back in the hands of consumers and places pressure on retailers to do the right thing. Importantly, this government is not leaving compliance to chance, and it is not relying on voluntary goodwill from service stations. New South Wales Fair Trading has undertaken a major compliance and enforcement campaign to make it clear that the obligations under the Fuelcheck scheme are not optional. If operators mislead motorists or fail to meet their responsibilities, there must be consequences. New South Wales Fair Trading has now completed more than 4,000 inspections and re-inspections of service stations across the state and has issued around 250 fines for breaches. That is not symbolic action. It is serious enforcement. It sends a clear signal that this government takes fuel transparency seriously and expects the law to be followed. The recent publication of the best and worst fuel reporting locations across New South Wales sends an equally clear message to the industry. Strong performers deserve recognition, but poor compliance cannot be ignored. Where reporting has fallen short and discrepancies between Fuelcheck and the Bowser have been detected, the government is right to shine a light on that conduct. Public confidence depends on transparency, and transparency means accountability. The public also has an important role to play through the Bowser Busters program, which enables consumers to report inaccurate fuel prices directly to New South Wales Fair Trading. That partnership matters. It strengthens enforcement, supports compliance efforts, and helps ensure that retailers who do the wrong thing are identified and held to account. Fuelcheck also gives government a stronger evidence base to monitor price movements, respond during periods of supply disruption, and better understand the pressures facing consumers. Just as importantly, it equips motorists with the information they need to navigate tough economic conditions and seek out the best available price. This bill strengthens those protections. It bolsters enforcement powers, it improves reporting obligation, and ensures there are real consequences for operators who fail to provide accurate information to motorists. That is exactly what strong consumer protection should look like. At its core, this legislation is about fairness, transparency, and standing up for consumers at a time when cost of living pressures are biting hard. Every dollar matters. Every cent at the Bowser matters. The people of New South Wales deserve accurate information, fair pricing practices, and confidence that the system designed to protect them is being properly enforced. That is why this bill matters, and that is why I know it will be welcome, especially in my electorate and across all electorates in New South Wales. And it is for those reasons, Speaker, that I support this bill and commend the Minister and the work his department does for bringing this important bill before the House.